The UK economic outlook for June 2022. Are we in recession? And if so, when did it start? Check out this video as I go through those details. Hi everyone, my name is Simon Misiewicz, and in this video we're going to be talking about the R word. So what I want to do is give you the cold hard facts, and typically you'll find that we'll be in recession when you have 6 months of decline or 2 quarters in decline, which is what you might hear in the media. And if we look at the April data, and already we're shooting this video in June 2022, but this data is for April 2022. Am I just out of date? No, that is the data that we have from the Office of National Statistics. So we're always playing catch up. And therefore, and I'm not talking about tomato. Oh dear. So talking about the moving forward from that real sad joke is to look at these facts of that we're always out of date and we're always speculating, well, what is May, what is June, even when we're in the middle of June. So there's a lot of people that speculate, but we don't really know the cold hard facts, and a lot of speculation goes out the window when the facts come in. So I will only use facts and what I know and what is published on the ONS website. So here, April, yes, we've got a decline. These base numbers on 2019 is 100, so it just bases it from the monetary values of GDP and puts it into this nice, easy to read format. The 100.7 is a decline from the 101 in March. So there's your first ticker going straight away there. And then 101 to 101, well, there's a slight decline there as well. And then from February to January, going backwards, there isn't a decline, but there may be a fractional decline. Will that be counted? That will be debatable. But we've still got this increase from December to January. So really, we've only got 1 quarter's worth of data that suggests that we could be heading to recession if and only if we'll see another quarter's results being in a negative situation. Now, we already know that the United States are heading into a recession. So should we be following? That will be an interesting point, because obviously the economy in the US will affect the UK as well. But it all really does depend on what we do in the UK to stave away recession. What was also interesting was their insights of their articles. So this is the gross monthly estimate for UK. Just want to give you some key highlights. Again, some cold hard facts. You can then make your own opinions and suggestions rather than what someone else's opinions. So let's just go through this. Gross domestic product GDP fell by 0.3% in April 22 after a decline of 0.1%. So 2 months worth they're suggesting, and they didn't mention about the third month, which is like decrease. It says in UK GDP increased by 0.2% in the 3 months to April 22. So there you go, just shows you that there is actually growth, but not as much growth as usual. Construction also fell by 0.4% in April, following strong growth in March 22 when there was a significant repair and maintenance during the storms. So obviously when something happens, you'll often find that the economy picks up in that sector. You'll notice that about the homes and the increase of sales activity when Rishi Sunak brought in the stamp duty land tax holiday period. Well, when an event like a storm happens, then again, you will see some growth in that sector. Just going to move on from that. And I'm only going to give you the real key parts. You can look at this data yourself, but I'm just going to give you the cold hard facts. Here it talks about the main driver to consumer-facing services remaining below pre-COVID levels was buying and selling, renting of operating or leased real estate, excluding input rent, and contributing in 3.1 negative points. Wow. It'd be nice to break that up, guys, into sentences, but never mind. What's this really saying? Well, people are spending less money on their properties as a business. So landlords, are they doing a lot of repairs? Are they buying properties to refurb them? Well, there is no indication of that going on, and we'll see a little later on how much of an impact that's going to be having on GDP. So is it as UK landlords to blame for this potential recession? Well, is it not the government for bringing harsh tax legislation against landlords? maybe. So there needs to be some kind of refresh on the George Osborne's stupid amount of taxation that he brought in to tackle landlords. And the reason I say that is not because of landlords making more money, but there's now a housing shortage which cannot be met by the construction industry itself. The cost of bricks is too much, and there's just uncertainty with the economy. The main driver to consumer-facing services remaining below COVID levels was buying selling, which we just mentioned. But you can see on this graph how much of an impact it has. There's your zero line, and then this is the retraction to minus 3% in the buying selling. If I just hover it over there, you'll see the contribution to consumer-facing industry services is minus 3.13%, which is the biggest drop-off. So I would look at this graph and think, well, hold on a minute. If I look at this, and it's a weighted graph, so it's difficult to say it's just that one, but actually that's a significant amount of contribution towards a regressing economy. Will that continue? Well, if the tax laws and legislation keeps on penalising landlords, then of course it will do. And therefore the government themselves may well bring on a recession by their own actions. Drop a comment in the comments box below to tell me your views and opinions on this, because obviously this is a major thing to consider when we're looking at the economy going forwards. Just going on down, a lot of information here. Production and output fell. This is production manufacturing output typically for the third consecutive month in April 22, with a contraction 0.6 primarily driven by manufacturing. So from that side of things, straight away we are seeing a heavier fall in manufacturing. This country isn't so reliant on manufacturing as much nowadays as it used to be. This certainly would be a massive concern in the 70s and 80s, but not so much now. It will, of course, have an impact. I'm not saying that it doesn't. The consumer sector, construction output decreased by 0.4% in April 2022. This is the first monthly decrease following 5 consecutive months of growth. So again, we're thinking about, well, people need homes. I would expect that to continue to increase, but if people start losing their jobs because of fear of recession, then they won't be buying any properties. It is also noted that the monthly decrease in April 2022 is coming off the record level of 14. Well, you can read the numbers there for March 2022. Despite the monthly fall, construction output was still 3.3% above its pre-COVID. Now, I'd expect that, to be fair. So the housing market is so much in demand to get proper quality homes for people, and construction is always being behind. It's been behind for a number of years, so it's no surprise that we're going to see this uptick enters the construction industry. And I think that pretty much brings me to a close on that one. What I want to also do is give you the inflation. Now, this is a huge amount of inflation. What the government have been trying to do is keep inflation between about 2%, and they're failing miserably. And we need to understand, again, when we see people on creating YouTube videos or in the media, they will focus on the 5.5% without really understanding, well, what makes up that number. Are we in a massive uncontrolled inflation, which is going to drive out price issues, further recession constraints from the government, etc.? And I want to really just go in through the facts of the matter rather than just get second guessing. And this is a consumer price inflation report for UK April 2022. So you can read this yourself from the Office of National Statistics. So go ahead and watch that. But I'm going to give you the main points that I think is relevant here. The Consumer Price Index, including occupiers housing of CPIH, rose by 7.8% in 12 months to April 2022, up from 6.2% in March. That's a huge number of inflation. Price increases are not something that we always want to see. Basically what that means is you'll be buying less, but buying the same quantity. You'll be paying more for a product, and therefore you'll only be able to buy a lesser amount. That's what I was meant to say. So we always have to be careful about price increases. The largest upward contributions to the CPIH inflation rate in 2022 April from housing household services, 2.76%, principally from gas, electricity, and other fuels. We know that the war between Russia and Ukraine is leading to a great debate about how and where we get our fuel. That is driving up the prices because of scarcity of demand now. If we cut off the supply, we need to get it from somewhere else. There's a bigger demand, and then the supply levels have to put the price up accordingly. Just moving on from this, I just want to highlight again, the government is always trying to focus on inflation at below 2%, and even if we use this data, we can still see that inflation is outstripping the 2% level that they talked about. So there's the graph that just shows you the CPI, the light blue, which is hugely increasing, and then CPIH. There's just so many ways of looking at CPI and inflation rates and whatever else. But this is a key graph to see, to understand that we're actually in a world of problems. 7.8, 2.9%, 9%. It's still higher than the 2%, whichever way you want to cut it. And don't they like to cut numbers to make their agenda work? Cynical, Simon. Okay, contributions to the annual CPIH inflation rate. The contributions from housing, household services, and transportation account for more than one half of the CPIH annual rate. So again, if you look at this graph, it tells you the same story. We're going to get into the detail of this in a second. Housing and household supplies. Housing and household services contributed 2.76%. We already know that. But percentage points came from electricity, gas, and other fuels. So straight away, we've got to think about, well, is it the price of services? Is there a demand on services, on products, that's driving up this inflation? No, it doesn't seem to be the case. It seems to be the case that the fuel itself is driving up demand. And this follows the increase in office and gas electricity, Ofgem, I should say, cap on energy prices, which changed on April 2022. Now, what we're seeing is a lot of people going into the local authority and asking for rebates from their utilities because they're overpaying, in their view, because of this cap that the government have put in. So that's one way of controlling the inflation, to say, well, hold on a minute, that is such a, what I call an outlier. An outlier is something that is out of kilter from every other products and services, which energy is right now. So we need to manage that by bringing in this kind of credit and this cap on fuel prices. So hopefully it will decrease the amount of payments in, and therefore bring inflation down just by that one activity, which is again another great way of controlling the economy to meet agendas, does it not? And there we go. Just want to show you in terms of the CPIH 12 months where the inflation is coming from. By far, housing, the cost of living in a house has drastically increased to a point that it's the driving force, I feel, based on this data, that it's driving up inflation. So just on this one, we talked about, on average, our energy prices, it rose by 46.5%. What? 46%? Wow, you tell me any economy that does that, or product services, compared with a smaller rise of 8.3% a year earlier. 8.3%, by the way, is no small rise. No, just because you say 46.5 is less than 8.3, yes it is, but actually 8.3% increase is still quite drastic. So we need to think about how we use our fuel and energy of our homes going forwards, because I just can't see that there will be this level of increases going away anytime soon. More specifically, the price of electricity rose by 40.5% and the price of gas 66.8%. So now we're looking at the point of that gas pipe coming from Russia to Europe and the UK, and really that is going to be driving up prices. And I can't see it getting any worse any better, simply because of the war continues and the way that Putin is now saying, well, hold on a minute, we will do things differently with the gas. And, there's controls around that as well. Again, just wanted to show you this point in terms of just that spike straight away. Look at that. Gas, electricity is the main driver for inflation. So really, are we out of control with the inflation, or are we just seeing that actually the makeup of this inflation is towards the household goods and services, which really is the gas and electricity, which is driven up by war? Would this inflation still be here without that? Maybe, but not to this degree. So the inflation numbers that we're seeing, I think that pretty much is it. But just going back to that inflation, would it be sitting at this number here at 5.5%? Probably not. I think there would be a manageable inflationary level, maybe above 2%, but it just gives you, this whole video suite really is aiming to give you a better understanding of the UK economy, and for you to make your own decision whether we're going to see out of control price rises in every sector, which is clearly not the case. Are we heading into a recession? What's your thoughts, guys? Drop a comment in the comments box below. Tell me what you think, how you feel about all of this and all this information that's coming at you in the way it does. And what's your predictions for the future? And tell me also what videos that you think I should be producing in the future to help you grow your wealth whilst paying less tax. My name is Simon Misiewicz from Optimised Accountants. I'll see you again soon. Hopefully that video was useful for you, but please do not stop there. There are plenty of videos that I know that will help you build your wealth whilst reducing your tax liability. And in this video, well, this is the one I think you should be watching right now.